The next morning, Mira was debating on if she should start towards the bridge or if someone would be picking her up when the door opened, and Fennis walked in.
Oh, Lieutenant Commander, I wasn't expecting you.
My quarters aren't far from here, so it made more sense,
he explained. As they walked towards the bridge, he said,
One of my men was in the medical bay for a very strange reason.
He paused, gauging her reaction. Her face stayed blank.
He said that he broke 4 of his bones by striking you in the face.
How strange,
Mira replied.
I don't recall getting hit in the face, Lieutenant Commander.
He raised an eyebrow ridge at her.
Maybe I walked too close to him, and my higher gravity messed him up enough to make him stumble and fall. I do recall someone clutching their arm, so maybe he tried to brace himself. It's a good way to break your arms back home.
Fennis was surprised. His subordinate had dishonored himself by not only striking a guest, but a female guest at that. Poen would be indebted to her for 3 annual cycles at a minimum if she confirmed the strike. Did she know this? Poen had mentioned she had been using the portable to learn about Drala. He must have been giving his thoughts away with his face because Mira replied,
Kids are often hot-headed. Don't let him ruin his life over a stupid mistake that has already caused him pain and humiliation. Let that be his lesson instead. I will likely be back on my planet spending the remainder of my service on board a sea vessel in a hot engine room where he won't even be able to stand upright, and my gravity is so high that he won't be able to ever fly and stretch his wings. A few minutes of anger and pride don't deserve that.
I will speak with Poen. In the meantime, he is assigned to you at least until we reach Earth.
Yes, sir.
They entered the dim bridge, and Mira met her first Bigfoot, Acili. During a vintage movie night growing up, her parents had the family watch Harry and the Hendersons. The Acili weren't that far off. They had made Harry's face have a naivety or ignorance to it. The Acili, on the other hand, had intelligence and even sorrow on their faces. Her portable had told her that the Acili were the most recent admittance to the Federation. They had joined because they were an Empyrean delicacy and had great losses to harvesters. The Federation protected them when no other race had responded to their cries for help.
Commander Raleigh, this is Chief Machinist Mate Mira, or CMM Mira for short.
Vebi said.
CMM Mira, this is Commander Raleigh. As you probably know from your time on Black Hole, all ships meant for distance travel have a balance of diurnal and nocturnal species, so that we don't endanger ourselves by maintaining a sleep schedule that goes counter to our natural rhythms. The Acili are probably the closest species to your own. They average stronger than your species, but fare quite a bit lower in stamina.
According to what Mira had read, the males had been decimated by the Imperia raiders as they tried to protect their females. The population would take time to rebuild, but for now, females were encouraged to share males. It went against nature for them to do this on a permanent basis, so having short-term relationships was easier. The story of the Acili was tragic. They had finally found a planet much like their own, with a sapient species they could even help by elevating it, but found out the Imperia had beaten them to it. They had been so close to the answer to their problems, only to have it snatched away.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Commander Raleigh.
Let's settle and speak together about what to expect about Earth,
Vebi suggested. The 4 of them headed over to a smaller, more personable room.
Before we begin, I have a bigger concern.
Vebi gestured for Mira to continue.
As you know, I was picked up by Black Hole. While making some upgrades so that my portable could communicate with my ship, the engineering officers Netla discovered an Empyrean infection device. Captain S's Veda considered a few scenarios.
Fennis indicated that they had been appraised of the situation.
That means that if it was intended for my crew and I to die and then be collected by the Empyreans, then they know we are missing, who likely collected us, where we would be taken to, and ultimately, the likely routes of return. Can you put my paranoid mind to ease by telling me we are going via an unconventional route?
Raleigh's eyes grew huge as she rushed out to the command deck, and she could be heard bellowing orders. Fennis said something that didn't translate, but sounded suspiciously like a string of curses. Veby continued to sit, staring at Mira, with two of his tentacles in a steeped position under his eyes, much like a human would have their hands like this in front of their mouths. It was a very human position. He was waiting for answers before panicking or making a decision. Fennis was pacing in the space he could. He was making mental calculations as he gestured in the air as he made and discarded plans. Also a very human reaction. Raleigh appeared in the doorway.
Rear Admiral, we have 4 hours until we are intercepted.
Veby nodded.
Lieutenant Commander, ready the troops for battle.
Yes, sir.
Commander Raleigh, your people are to rest for the next 3 hours. We cannot have them passing out while they fight from lack of rest.
Yes, sir. They will not find us to be easy meat.
Come, CMM Mira. We have work to do, and your skills and thinking may become useful. You will also have Ensign Poen to help you.
The Drala in question stepped forward as they entered the bridge and nodded in deference to Mira. While Veby officially took over command for the day shift, Mira was looking up Empyrean battle tactics. As she read and watched silent videos, she glanced up and she saw they were going to be heavily outnumbered. The Imperia were bringing 5 similarly sized ships to the Meteor. Mira noticed a shift towards fear on the bridge. She glanced over at Poen and saw the healing brace on his arm.
How is the arm?
She whispered while she continued to research.
Nearly healed, just in time for this.
Mira detected notes of resignation. They didn't believe they could win. Veby was making calls to other nearby Federation vessels. Mira smiled when she spotted the familiar face of Sisveta.
Greetings and warm rocks to you, Rear Admiral Veby.
He then spotted Mira in the background.
Ah, it is good to see you, Mira.
Mira stepped forward to be more in the camera view.
Hey, Captain Sisveta, how far out are you?
Veby was very confused.
I've been chatting off and on with video messages with Captain Sisveta. He understood my worries, especially at not receiving a return message from my commanding officer. I was worried that my message or his returning message could have been blocked. We had a similar conversation to what we just had because I didn't want to cause unnecessary worry. Captain Sisveta agreed that my worries were not unfounded, that I should talk to you, and that he was going to start heading in our direction, so that if you did make this call, you wouldn't have to fight this alone. Apparently, his nocturnal crew are the best species at flying the fighters.
Yes.
Sisveta relied.
Their bodies handle the changes in force the best, and I am 6 hours out. I called in a favor, and Ralta with the battle transporter, Skeetling Hatchery, is another hour out from us.
Battle transporter is a translation error. She would have also heard transporter of battle, and this would be a little like an aircraft carrier, but on a much larger scale. I wanted to deviate a little from naval ship classes a little, as these are alien languages, so direct translations would not always work.
Skeetling Hatchery?
Mira asked. Veby replied,
It's a skeet joke that the battle transporter is only filled with small fighter vessels. When they leave docking, they say it looks like a bunch of skeetlings surrounding their mother. Many of the battle transporters have taken on this joke as a naming theme.
He turned back to a grinning Sisveta.
How did you do this?
That's easy. Lieutenant Commander Ralta is the sister to my commander.
To Mira he explained,
My commander is one you never met. He is a trick. His people are resting for the upcoming fight.
Mira remembered that the Tariq were nocturnal, and she hadn't been out during the night hours while on board Black Hole. Mira's research had shown that they looked like large tarsiers. On Earth, a tarsier is a very small primate that only gets a half a foot tall. Truiks get about 3 feet tall. They are mostly bipedal but drop down to all fours to run. Because their feet are as dexterous as their hands, they typically drive with their hands and handle guns with their feet. Other species need a 2-man fighter team for comparison. Around the bridge, Mira noticed everyone looked better, like they weren't facing fates worse than death. Veby turned to Mira and Poen and said,
Ensign, get CMM Mira set up, and then you will both need to report to Lieutenant Commander Fennis.
Yes, Rear Admiral Vebby.
They both replied. Mira and Poen left the bridge.
How about we eat first and then we figure out the rest?
Mira suggested.
Eat? How can you eat now? My people get their wings removed and used as slave labor.
He was panicking. Mira stopped and rested her hand on Poven's arm. He twitched, but relaxed when she didn't harm him.
Hey, you need to relax. If you get yourself worked up like this, they will already win. A battle isn't about strength of arms all the time, but strength of mind and strength of will. What happened to that cocky, self-assured Drala in the exercise area?
You had not proved yourself to be stronger then. Imperia are stronger.
Don't crumple on me now, buddy. I have tricks up my sleeve still.
Poen plucked at Mira's sleeves.
I only see more arms.
Mira barked a laugh.
I see I need to add that saying to the translator still. We aren't dead yet, so stop being meat.
Her easy and carefree manner eased some of Poven's fears, and her confidence unclenched his stomach.
Soldiers and sailors back home learn to do two things in any situation: eat and sleep. You are no good to anyone if you pass out from low blood sugar or can't keep your eyes open long enough to catch the change in enemy movement or a dangerous change in pressures on the machinery.
Blood sugar?
Yep, humans convert all nutrients into sugar.
They continued on to the dining hall, which was mostly empty. Mira went for lighter foods that wouldn't weigh her down as she digested. They sat down with their food, and Mira pulled out her portable and used one of Zanetla's programs she had set up for Mira to run a few scenarios so she could understand better the differences in gravities and how they reacted to each other.
What are you viewing? It's been non-stop.
The first rule of battle is to know your enemy.
There are rules you follow for battle?
It's an unwritten rule, but we have rules for conduct too.
She tapped on her portable for a few moments as she accessed her ship's computer files, selected one, and sent it to Poven's portable. She had been adding English written language to the translation database, so knew he would be able to read it.
The Ganiva Convention? I don't understand.
He read an entry.
These are not allowed to be done?
His eyes widened.
You have done these to another?
He was horrified at what he had read.
Not personally, geez. I'm not a monster, but my people made agreements that these would never be done during war. The penalties for doing so are enough that we do not do them.
He set down his portable so he did not continue to read. He was now very glad she had denied that he had struck her. He could not imagine being around a species that had to tell each other not to do experiments upon captured enemies and non-combatants. His thoughts lead him to wonder why she has lied about it. Was her species naturally deceitful?
Why did you tell the Lieutenant Commander that your gravity field made me trip? Why would you lie about something that I deserve to be shamed for?
We outlawed slavery a long time ago.
She replied without looking up.
Besides, if every time a person made a dumb mistake like that, and we assigned punishments that lasted years, there would be no one left that wasn't beholden to someone else.
She looked up at him.
I also realized that I had acted how I would with humans. A human would have been laughed at by his crewmates, and probably given a demeaning-sounding nickname and teased mercilessly with it. He would get a tougher mental skin, learn to be a little more careful, and may even retell the story on his own to others, and even introduce himself by that nickname, and even laugh at what a dumbass he had been. Once I got back to my room, I remembered that we could have vastly different cultures and repercussions, so then I started researching Drala culture, realized how badly I fucked up, and made sure to do what I could to keep you from becoming my indentured servant.
She paused.
Tell me I didn't make it worse for you.
No, you didn't even flinch, so there was question on if I had actually even struck you. The Lieutenant Commander will also squash any rumors about it as well. Your gravity is quite a bit higher than mine. It was a plausible explanation for what happened.
Once they had finished eating, Poen led her to the armory. He fitted her with a personal shield which would defend her for a time against pulse weapons. He then handed her something that looked like it could be a rifle-like weapon.
How on earth?
She looked it over. He pulled the weapon from her hands.
Maybe we shouldn't have someone untrained with a plasma shooter.
Mira nodded her agreement.
How about a plasma-bladed weapon?
He pulled a sword from the rack, pressed a button, and it began to glow with a red light.
Let me get this straight. You want to hand me a weapon that I also have no idea how to wield? And then you are going to trust me around other soldiers?
Mira would have preferred even her service sidearm, but had been told that she would not be allowed to take it with her on the mission.
You need to be armed with something in the case of a ship breach.
Mira thought for a little bit, went over the parts she had left on her ship as well as parts she had seen on board Black Hole, so should also be on the Meteor.
Ever hear of a potato gun?
Hey everyone, hope you loved the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe for more awesome sci-fi content. And if you're feeling generous, check out our Ko-Fi page to support the channel. Every bit helps us bring you more stories from the stars. Thanks a bunch.